Welcome back, everybody, to the Average Reviews, the podcast where we don't just ask, is this movie good or bad? We break it down using our unique scoring system and figure out why it lands where it does. I'm Tim.
And I'm Johnathan. And tonight, we're talking Little Teeth, Big Attitude, and Intergalactic Chaos. That's right, we're diving headfirst into Critters from 1986, a movie that proudly sits in a wonderfully chaotic subgenre of tiny terror films that dominated the late 80s.
Yeah, this was one of the golden age of gremlinoid mayhem. Gremlins, munchies, ghoulies, hobgoblins, and critters. It was like Hollywood realized, what if we made horror movies, but fun-sized? And Critters might be one of the best of the bunch when it comes to balancing the goofy, the gruesome, and the clever sci-fi.
Fun fact, even though people love to call Critters a Gremlin knockoff, the script for Critters was actually written before Gremlins even came out. The studio ended up rewriting parts of it to avoid comparisons, but this movie has its own weird beasts from the start.
And weird is the right word. You've got alien bounty hunters who shapeshift into rock stars. You've got creatures called krites that look like meatballs with fangs. You've got Dee Wallace, yes, the mom from E.T., absolutely going for it in a farmhouse under siege.
This peak VHS era genre filmmaking, it's low budget, yes, but the puppetry and practical effects are actually pretty impressive, especially considering this wasn't a major studio production. The Krites were all done by the Chiodo brothers, who, if you're paying attention, also gave us Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
And, fun fact, they were the inspiration for the band, this early 2000s emo kid here. They were the inspiration for the band Chiodos. That's where their name comes from. And this movie isn't just horror, it's horror comedy with a streak of sci-fi. Think Amblin vibes, but with more blood and less supervision. And honestly, that blend of small town charm, outer space bounty hunters, and gory little monsters, it works.
So whether this was a staple of your childhood sleepovers or a cult classic you're just now discovering, Critters is a prime example of the bizarre little gems that defined late 80s horror.
And while we're revisiting old favorites, don't forget my new found footage horror novel, Like, Comment, Survive, is coming out 1 week from today. If you like terror with a modern twist and a little internet dread thrown in, it's the kind of thing you'll want on your summer reading list.
Definitely pick it up. But right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, welcome to the show. We want you to be part of the episode. Head to our Instagram at The Average Reviews Podcast, grab a scorecard, and rate Critters with us in real time in the comments or chat.
Because here at The Average, your scores help us build a better average. The more of you participating, the better the average reflects what our goal here is. Reviews for social settings. It's not just about saying a movie is good or bad. It's about why. What works for you, what doesn't, and what we'll still be talking about years later.
So let's crank the synth core, lock the doors, and hope the Krites don't bite through the power lines. It's time to find out just how much chaos a few fuzzy freaks can cause.
Let's roll into Critters.
Yeah!
All right. I think you put this one on our list.
I did. This is one of my favorites growing up as a kid. I mean, it only came out when I was like 3 years old, but like once I grew up got a little older into the later 80s, watching this, man, was always such a treat for me. And never was anything that really ever scared me. Like Puppet Master, that scared the shit out of me, but this was just fun.
Yeah, I did not see this one, honestly, until recently. I'd seen Gremlins before, but I was always like, yeah, this is a knockoff. I don't need to see it. And I missed out. Is all I'm saying. I missed out on that because this movie is a blast. So diving into the story, we brought up Gremlins. It's in that realm. It often gets that Gremlins knockoff comparison, but it's not at all.
No,
it is not at all. This story is very different from Gremlins. This is honestly, and I'll bring it up later, but it reminds me more of the more recent that we have seen in theaters. Watching it recently, I was like, hey, this reminds me of Lilo and Stitch. These aliens that escape to Earth and are tracked down by bounty hunters, except we don't have a cute little relationship between the aliens and the girl living on the farm. In fact, they eat her boyfriend first. So,
Poor Billy Zane.
oh, poor
Oh.
guy. uh, so the movie has a very different story than Gremlins, even though it is those tiny terrors. So it's the small town family battling against a group of carnivorous alien creatures called the Krites, who escape an intergalactic prison and land in Kansas. So a little bit of Superman in there, though. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of more depth to that story, but it is very unique. I can't say that I've seen many other movies like it as far as premise goes. I've seen the tiny terrors, that part. But the premise of, like, we open with some of the cheapest special effects in this space. I mean, it almost looks like Spaceballs special effects with that guy's. It's rough.
The floating guy with the round,
Yeah,
looks like a worm in a floating chair.
yeah. It's pretty funny, actually.
Like the guy from Farscape.
Yeah. So I don't see that in many others. I need to see Ghoulies again. Need to see some of those other ones. But I do think this one has a very unique, also very contained story, mostly taking place on this farmhouse other than the bounty hunters. There are times that I'm like, the bounty hunters are there to pad the timeline, because if it was just the family, it'd be an hour-long movie and it'd be over.
So for me, man, like I said, this is always an awesome story for me. I'm trying to think, like the little tiny terrors that we mentioned. Like I kind of compare this one more to Munchies, which you definitely need to watch. I will still say, definitely watch Munchies, because that was really cool as well. I don't know, just overall, this whole story always just really appealed to me, and even the sequels were pretty cool. The sequel, like number 2, I would say it was even better than this one. Had more comedy to it, and just
I was going to say number 2.
Gore.
I think number 2 is actually better.
Yeah, that's one of those few sequels I'll say was as good as, if not better.
Yep.
But for this one, as the initial part of the franchise, initial story of the franchise, this one was pretty awesome. I always sit pretty heavy at a 4, almost a 5 on this one, but definitely 4 for sure. Just the mix between your space bounty hunter elements, the small family, finding, that they're under attack, from these little things. And then the rest of the town being like, oh my gosh, aliens and crazy shit. And then the one guy, Charlie, who's been saying for years that the aliens are coming, signals through his teeth and blah, 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 blah. But no, he's just town drunk, so ignore him. And then finally getting like, oh, let's do something. Holy shit. It's here. Fucking Armageddon. Like, roll it out. Call the army and shit. And just like, oh, it's such a cool story, man. I'm always going to love it.
It is. I'm with you. It's a 4. I think it is pretty unique in it. I do agree. I think Critters 2 kind of perfected it a little bit more. I think they're both very good. I'm not knocking this movie saying, oh, Critters 2 is definitely better. I prefer Critters 2. I think they are both great movies. And we have Mick Garris directing Critters 2, which I just love Mick Garris. So I gotta give some credit there. But yeah, I'm a 4 as well. So we're locked in on that for the story category. Now the characters, we always talk. I score on arc, and this is one that I struggled a little bit with, because I didn't really see that much of an arc. They seem like a pretty tight family at the beginning, and they're a pretty tight family at the end. So, I mean, I didn't really take any of the stuff happening at the beginning between the brother and the sister as like, oh, they're on the outs. They really hate each other. She's about to, like, F you, family. She's about to take off. I didn't really take any of that. It focuses more on Brad, the 12-year-old boy, who's kind of the misfit tech-savvy kid, and he proves himself a hero in the end, as we want to see in all of our 80s movies starring kids. So that part's fantastic. I love Charlie McFadden. the alcoholic handyman who becomes a hero by the end. I think he's got kind of a bigger story arc than just about anybody, because you open the movie with he's a loony, he's crazy, whatever, and then by the end he's right. And he was the one prepared and telling everybody. I love that. I like that the family seems fairly realistic in this movie. So dad's working on the farm. The boyfriend comes over for dinner, and I thought it was kind of, I loved it. The dad, like, well, he's not gonna be farming with this car or whatever, and the girl just like, oh, come on, be nice. And the boyfriend definitely intimidated. I don't know, it's kind of cheesy, and I loved it.
Yeah, her New York boyfriend, or guy who's from New York. Yeah, you're right about Charlie. He's definitely got the arc. It's definitely believable as far as like the family dynamic. I think maybe I overscored on this section of it just because I like this movie so much. Because I mean, you already kind of nailed it. Like, there's not really much arc for anybody except for Charlie. I mean, the hunters, you know, they kind of get the job done half-assed, even though Charlie kind of like kills off the Krites and everything. And yeah, they wipe out the threat, you know, kind of, sort of, except for, you know, that little bit you see at the end with the eggs. You know, the family does seem a little closer. The brother and sister, you know, Brad and April always at each other, but I think it brings them a little closer after this experience. Dad realizes that, you know, Brad is not such a little punk. You know, he's strong, he's determined, he can handle his shit in crazy circumstances. So like, he really proves himself. You know, he's like a young, early, like preteen, teen kind of kid. So he definitely gets his dad's. I think he earns more of his dad's respect, and his mom's just like, my little boy, such a good protector, looking out for family, rolling with punches. You know, I know, right? My little baby. Oh my god. Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I scored a 4 on this, but I probably should have gone with a 3, but I don't care. I'm sticking with a 4. Whatever.
Stick with a 4. I was a 3 just because, and this is me making an exception because I don't think there's that huge of a character arc, but everybody's likable. I'm rooting for this family. I'm there with them in the midst of it. When the tension hits, that's one of the things that I think this movie does pretty well. I'm genuinely worried about them. You know, are the critters going to get them when dad is injured early on, and then he's kind of taken out of the fight, and mom and the kids have to step it up? It's good tension. It's good stuff. And that's because I care about all these characters that are set up in the first 25 minutes. They did an excellent job with that. So the only reason it's a 3 is because there's not like a transformative journey. It's just going through this experience with characters I like. So I give it a 3.
I can dig it. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. So moving right along to the next category. I lost my notes. Music and sound design. So the composer David Newman later scored The Sandlot, Galaxy Quest, and Ice Age.
Oh.
So decent name there. Created a nice little score for it, but it wasn't super memorable for me. Yeah, it's another one of those that's like, the music, sound design, all of that serves its purpose, but isn't revolutionary.
God no. No, it's more about the sound design than anything versus the music in this one. You get like the little blurb of like a music video with Johnny Steele that one of the hunters takes on the image of. And that's really like the most, like the biggest part of anything to do with music really in the film. But everything else, as far as like the sounds of the Krites, their sense of dialogue with the weird sounds that they make.
Yeah.
That's like more of the biggest thing. And of course, all the explosions and the blasts and this and that, and the little things like when the Krites are like shooting the little dart needles at people, stuff like that. You know, those are like the biggest parts that you really notice.
Yeah. So on this category, not a whole lot. It does not have that Gremlins. Dun, 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 dun. It's not there. I don't know the Critters theme from this movie. So unfortunately, it's a 3 for me. It's just good across the board. Can't really call out anything that's bad. I'm not sure I'm willing to say that it's great either. The critter design does sound good. It sounds good. So I'm at a 3.
No, it's very serviceable, just kind of average across the board. It all blends in the background. So I'm there with a 3 as well.
All right. If you're watching along, where are we at on those scores?
Let's see. Yeah, we got some conversation going on there in the chat.
Yeah, we did. We got some scores there for the characters, but all right. So, all right, and moving along, editing and special effects there.
The highlight of the sections that we score on in this one.
Yes. The redneck said he gave, I'm guessing, is Evan? Evan, is that you? Is that you, Evan? Chimed in and gave the music and sound design a 4. So
nice.
There we go.
Good.
All right. Yes, the highlight, the special effects, editing and special effects of this film. Johnathan, you go for it.
Yeah. So everything, like, even though like the start had kind of like those kind of low end, what you called like those kind of weak kind of effects that you see kind of cheesy films, still worked for me. Everything though is more focused on the Krites themselves and their design, and the way like the animatronics and the puppetry of all of that worked out. Yeah, I mean, that was cool. I mean, what more do you really need to do than just kick it? It's like a ball. It rolls along for motion. You know, even when they're standing around, jumping around, hopping around, whatever. Still kind of cool. Still kind of funny, even though a little hacky in some parts with the way the creatures move around. But one of the biggest effects, though, for me, was when the hunter is going through the change initially, when he becomes Johnny Steel, when they go through the ship. And you see just their kind of flat surface face kind of dissolve and melt down and then reform into the face of Johnny Steel was super awesome for 1986. Still kick ass. You'll see that kind of effect in a lot of other different films where someone's dying and dissolving and stuff, but to see it kind of go backwards to actually form a face, though, still very kick ass.
Hellraiser does that beautifully. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's so good.
The shooting, like there's giant gun blasters, is kind of cool, but nothing really significant. And then like kind of the ship effects that you get, the way they kind of have that layered over, just like the regular images of the farm, town, stuff like that, still pretty cool. Other than that, man, the giant Krite, the one that got really big, that's kind of walking or stumbling around a little bit. The movement was a little rough on that, but still very cool. Very cool.
It's very cool. I still love the giant Krite ball in the second movie.
Oh, dude.
All, like, go to the movie
the giant Krite cluster.
Yes, it's so good. It's so good. One of the effects that stands out in this movie for me every time that I think is so cool is the house rebuilding itself at the end.
Yeah. Dude.
Like, I know it's filmed in reverse, but it's still so awesome to see it all just knit back together. It's such a cool, simple effect that it's awesome. I love it. So the puppetry is cool. And doing this, so like we said, it was done by the Chiodo brothers. The creature's rolling attack, they used remote controlled rigs and motorized puppets for those, which is awesome. Many of the destructive scenes were miniatures, and you can tell that when the house is knitting back together. It doesn't look like a real house, it looks like a miniature, and that's totally fine. It still looks cool. But praise needs to go also to Tina Hirsch, who edited Gremlins and this movie. So helped keep that pacing snappy, balance the horror with the comedy and the editing. And also it was just really sharp. There's a lot of times in this movie that it is a sharp cut. We need to cut at a precise moment for the effect shot to take over from blowing something up. Or there's a scene where they yank the daughter away really quickly, and it's cut very sharply. She did an excellent job getting in there, editing those little details to make this seem believable. So for me, I'm praising it. I'm praising it. It is a 4 because I also I feel bad. But the space effects are not good in this movie. So everything on Earth looks fantastic. Everything in that spaceship looks like trauma production, and it's just rough. But it adds to the charm. So that's why I can't come in here and say it's amazing, because some of it is not amazing, but it adds to the charm of the film. The stuff on Earth is fantastic, and that's why I'm at a 4 on this one.
You mean you didn't like the low key spinning prison planet rock? It's just kind of.
Yeah. There's one time when the spaceship is like, it looks like they're doing some forced perspective with the camera, but it's clearly right there. Clearly right there.
Right on. I liked the editing though, like the way they put it all together though. Everything had good pacing throughout it. There was no real drag throughout most of the film, so like I liked the way that it just paced everything. So I think they did a great job on that. That, along with some of the bigger parts of the special effects, I would have liked to have seen more guts from the Krayt attacks, especially when Billy Zane gets attacked in the barn with April. You know, it looks like when he reaches to the stereo, it looks like it bites off his fingers, but you can't kind of tell. It's kind of hard to, because the lighting, the darkness of the blood, and the way he kind of brings his hand, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen missing fingers as an effect, and I would have liked to see some guts maybe spilling out. You know, Dad getting like super attacked left and right. Like that guy took a beating from Krayt. Holy cow. But I figured we'd have seen a little more effect of something.
Yeah, he did.
Going there. But overall, still liked it a lot. And I scored this one on a 5.
Okay. That's fair. Evan.
Yep.
Evan gave it a 3. Okay. This is awesome. I'm loving this. So 3 going off of memory. I do kind of agree. I do think they push the bloody boundaries of PG-13 though. For a PG-13 movie, it's pretty bloody, so I didn't expect some Krayts pulling out intestines. Mm-hmm. But if I remember, I could be wrong. I always thought that this one was PG-13 and Critters 2 was rated R. Am I could be wrong in that.
Let's see. Critters,
I'm trying to find it online.
Nope, it's PG-13. That was PG-13, yeah.
PG-13.
They were, it looks like all of them are PG-13. Right. Well, except for the 2019 one, Critters Attack, that one was actually rated R. But that's okay.
Okay, I actually have Shudder. I intend to watch that one. But I was surprised by the amount of blood in this PG-13 horror movie. I think this is another one, like we just did The Gate a couple weeks ago, and this is another one that's great entry level movie for kids. Honestly, it's a ton of fun, and it's got some decent tension and scares. You have it there on the shelf.
Might be on the other shelf, but I do have like the 4 movie pack of the first 4, so I've got that whole collection. Maybe.
Yep,
it's over there somewhere. But yeah, I was totally. Oh, I should have grabbed it earlier.
I've got that
too. Son of a bitch. But okay,
I've got that down in the basement from Shout Factory. I forgot to grab it. All right, so the script. Writers Dominic Muir originally wrote the script, credited under Stephen Herrick, the director, with story additions from Don Keith Opper. New Line did ask for rewrites post Gremlins because it was too similar. So they beefed up some of the sci-fi action components, and I think that's probably where we got those extra scenes of the bounty hunters. And a lot of the comedic moments, especially involving Charlie in this film, were improvised. So, which add to some of that offbeat fun of Charlie and those moments.
I dig the script. The way everything was set up as far as dialogue between the family all seemed very natural with how a family at the time, like, with, a young son, late teenage daughter, just fighting, bickering, all the bullshit, dad trying to keep things, in line while mom's just doing the regulatory thing and just loving everybody and doing whatever. And even the rest of the cast of characters and the way they were written, I thought was still pretty good. It kind of had that weird kind of fun, goofy, cheesy, but still somewhat believable kind of set up for a small town kind of set of people. So like the way they interacted and the way everything was written, I thought that was cool. I thought it was good, man. I'm kicking the script at a 4.
Yeah. So like you said, the natural behavior of everybody, I totally agree. So Dominic Muir says he died in 2010, but wrote Critters. He kind of created the story. High Risk from 1995, but then he really went into he went into the Full Moon Features world. He did Ginger Dead Man, Doll Graveyard, Evil Bong, Decadent Evil 2, Dangerous Worry Dolls, Evil Bong 2, he Puppet Master, Axis of Evil. He was in on all of those films. So the talent behind this movie is insane. Honestly, when we'll get to the cast here in a second, but the cast is a whole other level. But even the script writer went on to do a lot of, Full Moon is a beast in itself. That is something else. But even Stephen Herrick, who directed it, well, I won't. We'll talk about him in the directions. I'll just hold on. But I do believe when it came to scoring the script for myself, I gave it a 3. Part of me wants to give it, it's 3. I'm gonna be right there with Evan here in the comments. Script 3, borderline 4. I'm there. I gave it a 3, but I think I like it more than that. It's just like the humor doesn't exactly land for me every time, but I still appreciate it because it seems realistic. So yeah, I'm a 3.
Well, that's okay.
So then we have
sit on a 4.
You do that.
Yeah.
All right. So the acting, I was just about to say. So we talked about the scriptwriter went on to do some stuff. This has a stacked before they were famous cast. So this cast, just to name a few, I'm double checking a date real quick. I didn't do my research before I meant to. Okay, so she was actually famous before this, which is what I thought. But Scott Grimes, who plays Brad, later known for ER, Band of Brothers. He was in The Orville. He was a voice actor in American Dad. He was most recently on the Peacock television version of Ted, which was first episode's rough, but then it gets hilarious. And he played the dad in Ted in that. Billy Zane, the boyfriend, plays. He dies early, but he'd go on to star in Titanic, The Phantom, and Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Yeah.
Dee Wallace was already royalty at this time. So she was already known for E.T., Cujo, The Howling, The Hills Have Eyes. She was the quintessential 80s mom. Don Keith Opper, Charlie, who was a co-writer turned actor and reprised the role of Charlie in every single sequel.
Hell yeah.
So the one through line throughout the film. And Terrence Mann, a Broadway star who became an unlikely cult figure for his bounty hunter role in this film. And that is just a couple of, even, so we did Scott Grimes, Nadine Vandervelde, April, the sister, went on to, she was in Munchies, which I was like, no way. She did this one and Munchies. Yeah. Yep. So she was in Munchies. She was in a couple movies and TV episodes a lot before that. Silver Spoons, Days of Our Lives. After Critters, she did some more TV. She did Munchies. Alfred Hitchcock Presents, After Midnight, Tropical Heat. So hers wasn't quite as known, but I did think being in Munchies was pretty hilarious, and I wanted to bring that one up. And we have Emmett Walsh as the sheriff, Harv.
Classic.
Yeah. If you don't know who Emmett Walsh is, I don't know where to begin telling you who this legend of film is. Let me just go back to his IMDb around the 80s. He was very prolific. He was old in the 80s.
The Jerk with Steve
Let's
Martin.
see.
Blade Runner.
The
bunch
Jerk,
of other stuff.
Fletch.
He had a long category or catalog.
Yes, The Hitchhiker, Critters. He followed Critters up with a couple TV movies. Back to School, comedy. Vanishing America, Raising Arizona, No Man's Land. I mean, he's the guy you recognize him for being in something else. He shows up and you're like, I've seen that guy before. And sure enough, you have, because he's in everything released. He was in Camp Nowhere, which, go back to last year at this time, we were doing a summer vacation series and we talked Camp Nowhere. He was in that. He was in, I know him most from Home Improvement, where he played Jill's dad. He was the colonel in that one. He was Portrait of, I mean, the list goes on. This guy's everywhere. You
Knives
get the
Out,
you
more
get
recently.
the point. Oh yeah, I love that movie too.
That's a good one.
Knives Out. And then you cannot skip on Lynn Shay, who in the horror world, you should know Lynn Shay because she is known recently for the Insidious films, where she plays Elise Rainier, the I can't think of what it's called.
She's been around for a long time.
She can see into the nether. Yeah, she's been around for a long time. That's very true. But most recently, people connect her with Insidious. She was also, before that, a teacher in A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. So she went from that. She was in Alone in the Dark before Nightmare on Elm Street. She also has a very storied and successful list behind her of films. She was in the main course. She was back for the second one as well. So she is another one. Like, this cast was stacked with people, and they all do you know what, I'm going to say they do a great job. They do a great job in this movie dealing with some rather silly sci-fi elements, some puppetry on set, and they're still cranking it out and putting in a good performance. So I have to say they did a great job.
Definitely agreed. Terrence Mann, though, Johnny Steele, one of the hunters. Every time I see him in this movie, though, his facial structure makes me think of Tim Curry. Very similar kind of set, the eye set, everything. That. And then I keep thinking, man, what if Tim Curry had been in that character instead? What a trip that would have been. But I like him. Terrence Mann was cool. And then Brad.
He reminds me of the lead singer from, was it Black Roses?
Okay.
He reminds me of that guy. And it's probably just because of the cheesy metal intro that he gets, but he reminds me. He's definitely not, but they're basically the same character.
Yeah. And also Dee Wallace, the mom. You said she was in E.T.
Yeah.
It's funny that was mentioned because there's that one part where the Kreitz are in the house in Brad's room and they see the E.T. doll and the Kreitz trying to talk to it, interact with it. It's like, hey, what are you doing? And then finally just bites it, tears it up. And I was like, that's cool.
So that Easter egg, the other Easter egg, I'm glad you said that because I'd already forgotten it. I love that the dad's bowling shirt is Pinbusters, and it's the Ghostbusters logo. Yes, this movie was very self-aware of the time period that it was in. I love that.
Yeah, overall, great cast.
All right.
Good
acting. You ready for your score?
Hell yeah. Okay. I'm sitting at a 4 on that rig, bro.
Yeah. I am a 4 as well on the acting. I actually came up from a 3, but I came up because it's a stacked cast and they do a great job with what they have. It's a ton of fun. So I am a 4 as well. Okay. On to direction. So we already mentioned Stephen Herrick. This was his directorial debut. So Evan dropping his acting score. Yeah, we talked him up to a 4. We talked him up to a 4. So Stephen Herrick did the direction of his debut. He would go on to helm Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, and The Mighty Ducks.
I love it.
Like, I might have missed this movie, but this guy was formative on my childhood. I watched The Mighty Ducks VHS till it died. Like, I wore that tape out hard. I love that movie. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great movie. So I might not have seen this one, but he went on. He is like the cast in this. The cast went on to do other great stuff after this. So did the director. And the thing is, it's not like saying this movie was garbage and everybody went higher after this. This movie's great and everybody did better after this. Like, it's still a great film. So this movie, there's not a particular flair to his direction. There's not particular long takes or dramatic lighting or anything like that. It's a pretty straightforward film as far as direction goes, but he balances these special effects shots really nicely. He working hand in hand, I'm sure, with the editors and the Chiodo brothers to accomplish this. He builds some genuine tension in the film. Once they're trapped in that house and they're kind of in that bedroom alone for a little bit, like they're closing in, it reminds me of more recently Signs and the tension in Signs when the family's boarded up in the house. And it kind of like, it gets there. It's also balanced with some genuine comedy. I might not think it's the funniest, but it does balance it and it works. It also balances it with family drama, and I'm a sucker for good family drama stuck into these movies. Make me care about these characters, and it does. You know, nobody in this movie is a shitty human, and that's fine. It makes me care about them a little bit more. So the fact that dad is, for the most part, seems to be a good dad. Mom, for the most part, seems to be a good mom. The brother and sister seem to be normal brother and sisters. And so I want them to survive this intact instead of being like, man, I hope they rip dad's throat out, whatever. Like, I'm not. I want to see them make it through. So he balances that tension. He balances that humor. And he did some of the script rewrites as well. So he does an excellent job with it. He really does, and especially for his first movie.
Yeah, all of that. As far as direction goes, I don't really have much to say on it. Like, I liked the way like the shots were set up, and like the kind of pace that it went with in kind of moving around everything. Other than that, I'm getting better at this subject, but not so much for this movie when I'm trying to explain it. You said right. Much, you covered most of it, so it's just not much to say.
Okay. I talked it up enough to myself that I changed my own score. I was a 3. I was like, yeah, it's good. But I talked it up enough. I was like, no, he really does balance things that shouldn't necessarily work together, and he makes it work. So I gave him a 4. I'm a 4 on the direction.
So is I. Oh, and Evan as well.
Evan is a 4 as well. This is what real-time interaction looks like, people. So
love it.
Catch our next live on YouTube. Score it with us live. It's a ton of fun. So 4s. What did you say? You were 4?
Yep. 4's all me.
4's across the board. All right, so the cultural significance of the film. It is one. It is an 80s creature feature icon. It is right there alongside the movies we mentioned at the beginning, Gremlins, Ghoulies, Munchies, Critters. It defined a subgenre of the tiny terrors. What is most impressive about this one is the longevity. Only one of its peers, the only one of its peers to generate a quadrilogy of films and spin-offs featuring consistent characters. So even Gremlins had one sequel, which is criminally underrated. The Gremlins sequel is genius.
2 was awesome. I loved number 2, man. There was so much awesomeness
Yes.
to it. A lot of pop culture.
2 is so good.
And they're supposed to be doing a 3. I
It
think
never
they're supposed to be doing a 3rd.
Yeah, and I've heard that they are bringing back a lot of the original crew. So Joe Dante is still around. So he's doing tons of documentaries and stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. I've heard they're also going to stick with practical effects. So I'm not going to get my hopes up though. It never had the merchandising boom that Gremlins did. And that's because they weren't cute. I don't see why. Like Gremlins had the cute ones and then the mischievous ones, and that's of course why you can merchandise the crap out of that. Critters weren't cute. They were kind of ugly little furballs, the early version of Furbies with bigger mouths. So I see why they didn't really take off in the merchandising. They kind of look like dog toys. So, but it did grow a cult status, and VHS collectors, horror conventions have kind of brought it back in popularity. But its influence has carried on in other films. So the influence of Critters has carried on into Slither, Attack of the Block, and even like I mentioned at the beginning, Lilo and Stitch. The concept is the same DNA of escaped aliens that are dangerous, being hunted down by bounty hunters that need to stop. So it's kind of had some tendrils that creep out into other areas.
Let's see here. So, yeah, it's kind of hard for me to go with too much as far as it being significant, because when you got things like Gremlins and Ghoulies that came out first as part of the whole Tiny Terror thing, it's like Critters was kind of a latecomer being after that, but still it does have some sort of impact. And then you had Munchies that came out the year after. So, I mean, it kind of carried on in that way. But after the 80s, you didn't really get much as far as much of the Tiny Terror stuff anymore. It's not as prevalent as it was it was in the 80s. And it would be cool to see some of that come back. So, I mean, if they do the Gremlins 3, that'd be cool. But it's hard for me to really think about the larger impact of it. I'm just kind of middle ground with it, just because there were so many of those films in the 80s.
Yeah, that's fair. I give it a 4, and I'm probably giving it too high of a score, but I give it a 4. Mainly the reason I gave it a 4 is because it was the only one to carry 4 movies, and number 4 had Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
It did?
Before he was famous.
Holy shit.
Yes. Critters 4 had Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
So I don't remember if I could watch
Without Critters, Leonardo DiCaprio would never have been cast in Titanic. That's what I gathered. So Leonardo wouldn't be who he is today without
Critters. That. Yeah, sure.
That's why I gave it a 4.
So yeah, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. For me, I'm sitting at a 3, and from the looks of it, looks like Evan was a 3 as well on that it factor.
Yeah.
So I feel that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's fair. All right. So we are at our how entertained were you by this film? I'm ready. Who wants to go first? You want to go? You want to go first, Jonathan?
Yeah, I'll always be hella entertained
Okay.
by this movie. It's always going to be a fun one for me. Just it was like I said, it's one of those really impactful films from my youth of weird films that I probably shouldn't have seen so young. But whatever. I'm kicking hard at a 9 on this one, dude.
I am actually sitting at a 9 as well. This movie's awesome. Do I want to watch it again immediately? Honestly, depending on my mood, you know what? No, I wouldn't, because I'm gonna watch 2. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Yep. It's almost with TMNT, but I did say I would watch TMNT again immediately. But this is similar. I don't want to watch this one back to back, but I do want to go from this to 2, which is my favorite of the franchise. And just, it's a fun little world to live in. It's a blast. I'm a 9 as well. And we got Evan participating in the chat. It's a 9 for Evan as well. This movie is a ton of fun. It is a ton of fun. So I don't know if there's more for me to add based on what I've already said. But yeah, it's 9s all day. Making final scores for us. Jonathan, where are you?
I am sitting at a solid 40.
Awesome. I am sitting at a 38.
Oh.
And then Evan, I got your math here. Evan is also at a 38, which makes, strangely enough, it makes our group total, our average, with a participant in the chat killing it, makes our average 38.6666. So that would put it, and I totally agree with this one. That's basically saying it's a 4 out of 5 stars, which means it's a great film for social settings. And I kind of think it is. And if you disagree with that, you should have been following along in the chat and giving us your breakdown of why it isn't. So it's a 4 out of 5 stars for our final average, 40 out of 50, 39 out of 50 if we're going to get a little bit more technical.
How you like
but
that?
That's what we got. It was surprisingly short for Critters. I think, no, we'll see. I think one of our Halloween episodes might beat this one for the shortest. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. So that's what I've got for this. Jonathan, do you have anything else to add to this?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah.
I think we did. I think if you haven't seen Critters, you need to see Critters. Critters is a great time. Just go watch it. Don't think of it. Don't avoid it because it's a Gremlins knockoff, because it's not a Gremlins knockoff. It is not. It is something entirely different in its own world, and it's worth the attention that you should give it. I don't have much more to say. It is streaming free on the greatest streaming service on the planet, Tubi. It's out there, so you have no reason not to watch it.
It's coming off there like in a day.
Oh,
I was looking at it earlier. I was watching it, doing a rewatch this morning, and it said like leaving soon, 1 day left. So it might be going elsewhere. Watch it somewhere else soon.
Or catch, if you're a physical media person, Shout Factory has a fantastic little box set. You can get the Blu-ray or the 4K versions of it, and they look great. It's a great little set to have. Tubi is the best. Tubi, sponsor us. We'll be the official movie review channel of Tubi streaming service.
Get us a full moon sponsorship. Yeah.
I'd review only Tubi movies for the rest of my life and still be a happy person. So, all right. There's such great variety on Tubi. I'm all about Tubi. I'd cancel. I think the only thing we pay for outside of that right now is, weirdly, we pay for Paramount Plus because I'm a Showtime person, and Dexter Resurrection. I'm ready for that. And HBO. That's all we pay for.
Okay.
All right. Johnathan, are we ready to read us out of here?
I believe so.
Well, folks, that is another creature feature in the can, and this one had teeth, literally.
We battled bounty hunters, dodged crite spikes, and somehow lived to tell the tale. Critters might not have same household name status as Gremlins, but it's got charm, chaos, and a surprising amount of heart for a movie about space porcupines eating cows.
Big thanks to everyone, Evan, who scored along with us. Your input helps us figure out not just if a movie holds up, but why it holds up. Every comment, every number helps build a bigger, better conversation about what makes this movie memorable.
And remember, you can always find our scorecards on Instagram. Choose one of the three methods and tell us how you rated the film. Was it a cult classic in the making, or one that should have stayed on VHS?
And don't forget, if you're into horror that mixes some dread, maybe a little bit of blood, and the nightmare of internet fame, my new novel, Like, Comment, and Survive, comes out in 1 week from today. Perfect for fans of found footage and fear that doesn't log off.
Until next time, keep the power on, don't answer the door for anything under 2 feet tall, and maybe don't keep mysterious alien eggs in the basement.
This is The Average, where the real review happens with your friends. See ya.
Peace.